Continued. Page number 159. Munnu bore the girl child on one shoulder, the boy on the other, and looked not unlike Hanuman, the monkey god, who is supposed to have carried Ram and Sita, the hero and heroine of the Ramayana, from Ceylon to Oudh. Now that he had found company, he felt himself and the impish enthusiasm of his being returned. "Brother," he said, running up to the old man who led the way, "what is your name?" "They call me Hari, brother, Harihar," said the old man, stopping to wipe the sweat which streamed down his coffee-colored forehead over his tender eyes to his rather thick black moustache, and resting the weight on his back by the iron cage of a young tree, he blew a mouthful of hot air. How far have we to go?" asked Munnu, concerned to see that the old man was tired and the children were dozing on his shoulders. "We have only a little way to go through the Bhendi Bazaar to Chowpatty," replied Hari casually, and then he addressed his wife, who had come to a standstill a little distance away. "Ari, mother of Moti, sit down and rest a while." The woman modestly moved her head, thickly veiled under the apron, and only shifted a small tin trunk which she held under her left arm. "The shades of the evening are falling and the children are already asleep," said Munnu, putting on an air of worldly wisdom. "Let us hurry." End of page 159. Now page 160. "Let us mention the name of God and go on," said Hari. "I know of a shortcut to Chowpatty." They crossed into a narrow street where the houses jutted close into each other and over the pedestrians with their fabric sun hoods or naked serried windows opening into rickety carved balconies from which the heat had licked off the paint. It was difficult to carve a way among the throngs which leisurely strolled along in garments of colors as varied as there are cheap German dyes, in forms as tawdry as TAWDRY, tawdry as can be obtained by mixing the styles of 100 different races. This, Munnu thought, is no different from Daulatpur or Shamnagar, only more confusing, and he shut his mind to the silver, the orange, the green and the gold, the blue, the flaming red colors of the trappings of the Arabs, the Hindus, the Mohammedans, the Parsis, the English and the Jews, and walked on, concentrating on himself. The kaleidoscope assumed a uniform white-colored mass before his mind's eye. Kaleidoscope, KALEIDOSCOPE. But the riot of variety was soon illuminated by the electric bulbs which hung from every booth, stall and shop, and the vermilion, scarlet, yellow and green which shone now garishly, now dazzlingly upon Munnu's eyes. He was, however, annoyed by the strange mixture of people, the queer din of 40-odd lingos, and felt his northern blood quiver with self-consciousness as he struggled along under the weight of his shoulders on the pavement now wedged with men and women. The wares displayed in the shops attracted him, especially the steel toys he saw on a stall, and big mangoes, bigger than those he had seen in his village in Shamnagar or in Daulatpur. But the shops were surrounded by rich men who haggled loudly over the prices of the goods, and Munnu had perforce to move on. An emaciated man, EMACIATED, emaciated man, the bones of whose skeleton were locked in a paralytic knot, dragged himself by the edge of the road precariously near the wheels of passing victorias, begging with a wail half metallic from deputation, "Oh man, give me a pice." Get away, the Parsi owner of a shop cried, flourishing the big bamboo pole of an awning he had dislodged. Further along a grey haired, black, blind man leant half on the arm of his daughter, half on a stick which he held in the gnarled roots of his right hand. The girl with clear-cut features, end of page number 160, now page 161, that had once beamed with life but which now expressed nothing except abject humility. The absolute weakness of her smile and the shining, painful meekness of the eyes joined her two hands in importunate beggary. Go away, let us rest," said a wisp-clothed Hindu who sat killing flies in his shop. Go away, let us rest," said a wisp-clothed Hindu who sat killing flies in his shop, the red rubies in the gold rings of his ears reflecting a cruel glint of laughter on the woman's mask of pain. So, after all, there is no money to be picked up in the streets of Bombay, Munnu reflected, because there are poor people here too. And he felt strangely heavy in his heart as he looked up to the low, deep blue sky from which the stars stared down brightly and happily. He hurried to get abreast of Hari, who appeared to walk very quickly and energetically for his seemingly 210. "There is no air here, Hari brother," Munnu said. "Let us run fast." "Where is the mother of Moti?" Hari asked suddenly. He had evidently forgotten about her. So had Munnu. The old man ran back amongst the almost panic-stricken, causing anger and irritation among the crowd through whom he had to shoulder his way to reach for his wife. Luckily he found her, buying bananas at a stall. "You will get lost," he cursed. "This isn't the village that you can find your way back home. There is no home to go here." The woman followed a little more quickly. Her heart went out to the bracelets, the culinary utensils, the ivory work, and the gold and silver ornaments which lay exposed in the shops on her left, and she could not help breaking through her modesty and saying to her husband, "I would like to come here to buy things when we are settled." This made Hari very angry, not with her but with himself, and he bullied, walk on, you bitch. You have hardly a place to rest your head on for the night, and you build castles in the air like Sheikh Chilli." Munnu had stood watching a quarrel between two phaeton drivers who, caring nothing for the right of the road, had brushed past each other so dangerously as to alarm the rich, silken saried Parsi women pedestrians into a grave anxiety about their lives. Then the old man and his wife joined up. End of page 161, now page 162. They emerged from the bazaar into a residential street with tall houses decorated by facades of floral design and arabesque reliefs, plastered and whitewashed in imitation of the European style. The huge posters outside a cinema at the end of the road, illuminated by the bulbs of colored glass, accentuated the air of civilization. "What about sleeping here, brother?" said Munnu. "No," replied Hari. "We cannot sleep near the houses of the rich. Many thefts take place here, and honest folk are caught up with the dishonest loafers and thrown into prison. For us, the street there, where shops close early and the boards are empty. 20 weary steps and they had turned the corner. But Hari came to a sudden halt when he should have turned to left or right. Munnu almost dropped the sleeping children from his shoulders as he pulled up with a start before knocking into the old Coolie in his almost mad rush onwards into the broad street covered thickly by the shadows of houses over which descended the thick layers of the night. "Have you forgotten the way then?" Munnu asked as he saw Hari stand fixed. "No," said Hari, shaking his head despondently. "We are late. It will be difficult to find a place here. This street is full of men. We will have to wait till the shops in the bazaar that we have left behind close for the night, unless all the shelters there are taken by the coolies who work around about." Munnu looked back and saw Hari's wife standing still, her apron still drawn over her face, and the colored lights of the cinema far away in the street radiating happiness. Then he looked ahead of him, exploring the avenue of the broad street by the pale light of infrequent gas lamps that illuminated it. The bodies of numberless coolies lay strewn in the tattered garbs. Some were curled up into knots, others lay face downwards on folded arms, others were flat on their chests, pillowing their heads on their bundles or boxes, others crouched into corners talking, others still huddled together at the doorstep of closed shops, or lay on the boards in a deep inner sleep which looked like death, but that it was broken by deep sighs. "If we go further, there might be a place for us somewhere," Munnu said, urged by the cool breeze that came like a snake swishing from the darkness of the sea on his right. And he bravely led the way. End of page 162, now page 163. He had hardly gone 3 yards when he stumbled on a heap of patched quilt that half enclosed the rotting flesh of a leper who was stretching his bandaged arm and legs as a warning to all passers-by. Sick with disgust and pity and stung by the scorpion of fear, he capered aside only to be greeted by the hoarse moan of a sleeping beggar who protected her little child as she lay close to it, resting her head on her elbow and looking out into the dark with a tiger's steel glance in her eyes. Munnu came towards Hari abashed, and looked at the old man with a nervous smile on his jaws. "Walk carefully, my son," said Hari. "Let us not disturb other people's rest. I will show you the way." Munnu made room for the old man to lead, and he followed cautiously, adjusting the weight of the sleeping children. He wondered how Hari's wife could see in the dark with her head apron drawn over her eyes, and he wished he could ask her to uncover her face. If she were as old as Hari, he felt he could ask her quite openly, as she could be in the position of a mother to him, who was only 14 years of age. He looked around with the view to seeing if he could address her. Suddenly the rapier thrust of a heart-rending shriek fell on his eyes. He saw that 10 yards ahead a coolie had fallen with a thud and was rolling down, kicked from behind by the caretaker of a house, who presumably wanted to close the iron door that secured his master's mansion against thieves. There were hoarse whispers, groans, and heavy, half-subdued sighs. Then a number of coolies arose from the nooks and corners where they had taken shelter for the night, apprehensive that the same fate might befall them. The bodies which lay sprawled all over the pavements heaved to and fro, flung off their torn white sheets, surprised, and stretched their glistening black bodies in the darkness, or cast off the weariness from their sagging limbs and sat up speaking kind, soft words and incantations, as if their magic formula would charm away all misfortunes. Munnu shook the panic off his being as he heard Hari turn back with a reassuring message. "Come, I see a place across the road." The boy followed, thinking how different seemed the bodies of the coolies here from those of the laborers in the grain market at end of page 163, now page 164. Daulatpur on that night after Prabha had been beaten up by the police. The hill men and the Kashmiris in the north were hard, thick, big-boned and raw, while these coolies seemed weak-kneed, spineless and thin. But then he felt there was really little difference between them. The up-country coolies were as afraid of the caretakers as these southerners, and he recalled the feeling of grim fear that had possessed him during the moment when he had clambered up to the top of the grain sacks, the fear of the long stave of the chowkidar. There was indeed a clearing on the other side. There was indeed a clearing on the other side of the road by the doorsteps of a shop, a kind of gallery with a 3-foot square of board, evidently used to put shoes on by the shopkeepers during the day. But why it was empty they could not make out, as they stood dubiously contemplating its advantages. A half-naked woman who sat nursing her head in her hands as if she was struggling to control the most excruciating pain, looked up at them and said in a voice which was smothered by her sobs, "My husband died there last night. He has attained the release," said Hari. We will rest in his place." Munnu felt the dread of death facing him. The picture of the large, ugly, demoniac form of the god of death, which he had seen in a lithograph in a shop at Daulatpur, standing guard over the souls of the wicked who strained to swim across the ocean of blood, formed itself before his eyes. The blood in his body seemed to dry up, but he felt the warmth of the child's breath on his cheek, and Hari spoke. "We are not afraid of ghosts." Fortunately, his wife had not heard the woman's warning, as she had lagged behind, weighed down by the load she was bearing. "Come and rest your limbs here, Lakshmi," said Hari as he approached, and he unrolled the baggage he carried. She obeyed her lord and master. We will rest out on the pavement," Hari said, putting his hand affectionately on Munnu's back. "The children can sleep there with their mother." Munnu laid the boy on the unrolled bedding in the gallery. Then he came back and sat down on the pavement next to the concrete wall. The slab of stone under him exuded the warmth which the scorching sun of the day had left in it. But he saw that there were sheeted, end of page 164, now page 165, figures sprawled all over the pavement. "One gets habituated to it," he thought. "I shall soon get used to it, only I am new here." As he cast his eyes along the street, this side and that, he saw why it felt strange here. The swarming houses in Daulatpur were comparatively low, and the coolies huddled about them seemed like ants on a heap, while the very gigantic proportions of these colossal stone buildings which shadowed the narrow bazaar had made the dark bodies of the coolies seem out of place, and there was something oppressive in the low southern sky overhead and in the dense, dark, stifling atmosphere which it enclosed, and everything seemed so still, so dead. Munnu felt very alone. Then he became aware of a hot blast of air which came loaded with the sickly, fetid odor of ghee, sandalwood, urine, sour milk, fish, and decaying fruit. He looked in the direction from which the smell oozed. A soft breath, half moan, half sigh was all he could hear, and the movement of a corpse flinging off its blanket. He looked the other way. There was another coolie turning on his side restlessly and muttering something. He withdrew his glance. Presently he became conscious of a bare body rolling in anguish and slapping itself on the knees to the accompaniment of foul curses. Munnu looked beyond the man across the road, then beyond Hari, who had laid down on his left, and beyond the widow, who still sat bending her head in her hand. There were corpses and corpses all along the pavement. If the half-dead are company, he was not alone. But he felt a dread steal through him, the dread of sleep, the uncanny fear of bodies in abeyance, whose soul might suddenly do anything, begin to snore open their bloodshot eyes for a second, grunt, groan, moan, or lie still in a ghastly, absolute stillness. Silently and quickly he extended his legs and dragged his body into the attitude of sleep, closed his eyes and tried to assure himself that all these people were just like him, not ghosts but men. They have probably all come down from the north to find work like me. I wonder if they had stole rides on trains or had to pay fares. That elephant driver, he must be on the black waters now. He was kind, and Prabha, I wish they knew that I have made friends and am going to get a job tomorrow. They both said I was a brave lad. Yes, I can do things. But what could I do if all men were? End of page 165. Now page 166. Like Ganpat or the policeman, or the man in the food shop today. I wonder what Hari thinks. His black face always remains the same. I shall ask him to tell me his story tomorrow. His wife keeps her face covered. I would like to know what she looks like. A ripple of warmth passed through him at the thought. He felt feverish. Sleep, come sleep, he said to himself. A queer agitation possessed him, unsettling him, exciting him, working him up into a panic.